Okay, so I assume that if you're volunteering in Japan, you have the most basic of Japanese communication ability. You probably live in Japan and you'll be able to understand a lot of the stuff I'm sort of glossing over here. I'm not really going to deal with volunteering if you're coming from outside Japan, or if you have no ability to communicate in Japan, or if you don't really understand how train systems work here, because how those transport systems and whatnot work in Japan are full videos which I have yet to make. So your best bet is to come in with the intention of helping out with a foreign-run organization or a Japanese private organization that has dedicated international staff, dedicated English-speaking staff. There are some English-speaking staff at some of the city offices, but it's not something you want to count on. It's not something you want to assume is, and then get there somehow and then realize, oh crap, I have no idea what they're telling me to do. So at least the very basics of Japanese communication are kind of necessary for this, I'm afraid. Step 1. What do you do? Volunteering is much like that previous video I put up. A lot of infrastructure repair, a lot of infrastructure cleaning. There are the physical side of things. There are things like gutters. There are parks, you know. Sometimes it's not really heavy work. Sometimes you're just picking pieces of broken glass out of parks. That's still happening right now. Sometimes it's rearranging and replacing, and sometimes even replanting some of the flower arrangements and whatnot that were there before. On the not so physical side, there is a lot of outreach work, going to temporary housing facilities, speaking to people who are affected by the tsunami, just giving them someone to talk to, really, giving them an outlet for whatever stress they need to get out. Many of the kids, you know, just playing with them, talking to them. So there's a lot of outreach work like that as well. You will get the chance to do some non-infrastructure, non-outreach work as well, because most city offices also do work for communities, work for people in the community. How that works is those people will sign a list and say, hey, I need this done, I can't afford XYZ, or I need volunteers to help me with this because I can't do XYZ on my own. And they get added to a list, and as volunteers become available, they slowly work their way down the list. Some of the jobs that are available for that are some of the earlier day jobs was stripping the inside of buildings to be rebuilt or refurnished, re-walled and whatnot. Sometimes stripping the inside of buildings of important stuff so that they could be demolished later on. Some of the less physical work we've done, well, it was pretty physical as well, to be fair, was rehabilitating fields, rice fields, rehabilitating just farms in general, helping people who needed to sort that stuff out. We helped the community clean up their ground golf course once, just picking hard stones and muck and mud and glass out of their ground golf course so that they could replant the grass. So that's the sort of broad spread of jobs that you have there. There is a whole lot that you can do, really. It's not only just the stuff that I did there in the gutters. So as you can see, if you want to find out information about websites and about the volunteer sites, it's really just a simple Google task. You type in the name of the city you want to go to. For this example, say Orfanato. If you don't know how to write the city's kanji, or when you put the the kana in and it converts, and you're not sure if the kanji it converts to is the actual city name, just go to Wikipedia beforehand, type in the Romaji name of the city you're planning to go to, and click on the Japanese page for that city, or even on the English page. It'll usually have the city name and the kanji off on the Wikipedia page. Copy that and put that in the address bar. Solves your kanji problems. Then all you need to do is type in katakana Borantia or Borantia Center. That'll generally get you to where you want to go. And that's with regards to all the cities. The volunteer center websites are really, really useful. You can Google translate them to English if you got a general idea of how Japanese is spoken, but you don't really know how to read it. There's no problem. Just translate it to English, and your knowledge of the way the language works will hook you up, and you'll understand the bizarre stuff that Google Translate gives you without any problems. On these volunteer sites, you will find generally blogs about what they've done, the jobs they've done, the jobs they have. In some cases, they have their schedule. The schedule's not always easy to find. What they do have, however, is their contact details. And these contact details are usually a lot easier to find, generally on the front page of the website. If you're not sure what the website says, or you need more information, you just need to speak to someone to be sure about what you're reading, what you're seeing, give them a call. Give them a call, talk to them, and find out what you need to find out. They're also a really good source of information on the local area. You need to find out about somewhere to stay. You need to find out about just basics you need to prepare before you go through there. Ask them. They'll tell you everything you need to know. Of course, it's not likely anyone will be able to speak English there. So you're probably going to have to do that in Japanese. Okay, accommodation. Now, where I stay is at a private eikaiwa school, a private English conversation school in Orphanato City. And for us, that was a pretty sweet deal that was arranged on our very first trip by the person who organized that trip. And that was because she used to work there. All the trips I've organized subsequently, I stay there and I use that as my base and our base of operations. And that said, that is sort of one of those one-time deals, one of those things that just sort of happen if you make it happen. It's more than 2 years after the actual tsunami happened though, so many of the areas that are affected where the city volunteer offices are in operation, there is accommodation available. There are hotels, there are ryokans, there are camping sites, there are many different things and many different places where you can stay. And finding them is as easy as planning accommodation on any trip into non-urban Japan. Google it, TripAdvisor or Jalan, find yourself a place to stay, and you know, just go chill there, stay there. There are some accommodation facilities that are still earmarked for volunteers, though most of them don't exist anymore. In order to find out if there are free accommodation facilities or free campsites that volunteers can use, you're going to need to contact the volunteer centers directly. And we'll talk about city volunteer offices in how to actually do that in a bit. Either way though, you're pretty much responsible for your own accommodation up there. But really it's no different to planning a trip anywhere else in Japan. And If you look hard enough, you'll be able to find a good deal, no matter what. If you're at a campsite, you might want to take note that there's probably going to be very minimal facilities, especially in the volunteer sites, minimal facilities for you to use. So make sure you know where the local hot springs are, make sure you know where whatever facilities you are going to need to use are in relation to where you camp. They're often not near anything convenient. Next up is getting there. Now, as you may have guessed, just from me being me and what I'm doing right now, my preference for getting to the volunteer or to the tsunami affected areas is by car. And that's just because I like to drive. But even now, 2 years later, when a lot of the public transport and transport connections have been fixed, a lot of the local trains, a lot of the local bus lines haven't returned to former systems. And so what public transport there is within the cities that you're volunteering is often not particularly what's the word I'm looking for? Is not particularly robust. It's not particularly convenient, and often won't take you to many places that you might think it would take you to. And a lot of the transport and stuff you Google right now is how it was before the tsunami actually happened. So local transport in those areas can be a bit iffy. It doesn't mean you can't volunteer, it doesn't mean you can't get around. I suggest though, if you're taking public transport, take a folding bicycle with you as well, because there will be instances when you need mobility and you need to get further than your legs can carry you, and a bicycle is generally cheaper than a taxi. Cool. If you're driving, you're going to probably get there by expressway. Generally, from wherever it is you're coming in Japan, you'll have to get across Japan somehow using expressway. If you got ETC, use it, travel through the night, cut your toll fees in half. If you don't have ETC, as they say in Japan, shoganai, can't be helped. Pay whatever you pay. If you're driving, go with friends. Organize a group. Stick 4 people in the car. It makes things really cheap. Much cheaper than public transport, in fact. If you're going on your own, obviously public transport will probably work out cheaper. So if you're going to Ofinato, for example, you take a Shinkansen from Tokyo, get off at Ichinoseki. In Ichinoseki, you take a bus down to Ofinato City. In Ofinato City, there isn't a bus network, but I don't really know the timetables and how it works. I know that the Sakari station, which is where the bus from Ichinoseki will drop you off, is where is the main sort of public transport sort of terminal in Ofinato City. Obviously, the downside to public transport, well, you don't have freedom in mobility. If you're going to be there for longer than 3 or 4 days, honestly, I would say it's really a good idea to just go in the car or hire a car and drive it up there with some mates. It's you miss out on so much, because if you're going to go there for 5 days, you're not going to volunteer for all 5 days. You're going to volunteer for 3 or 4 days, and you want to tour the area for 1 day. There's so much to see. There's the Hiraizumi World Heritage Site. There's really good food. There's kakodango in Ichinoseki. There's so much stuff that you can explore if you've got a car, because public transport in Iwate is a bit sketchy. You can get to obvious places like Hiraizumi, but you really got to plan that in advance and plan your times well, and you won't be traveling at night, and so you will lose that freedom. Another thing is, if you're camping out, you probably can only access the campsite via car. And so, well, that just sort of limits your accommodation to stuff you can get to by public transport. When I went up to Touhoku on my own in my car, it cost quite a bit of money. And the entire trip, I was there for a week. It did involve some touring. It did involve lots of eating out, but it cost me almost gomanen, which is more money than you really need to spend volunteering on your own. It really shouldn't cost you more than Nissan manen. That said, again, money and cost is dependent purely on your accommodation choices, is dependent purely on what you eat and where you eat. Hell, there are conveniences up there, there's convenience stores up there, so there's ATMs there. If you're in a pinch, you can always pull stuff out, assuming you live here and you have a bank account. Okay, we've looked at accommodation and transport. What do you need to take? Okay, you need to take yourself and old clothes. Really, that's all you need. Clothes that you don't mind messing up, clothes you don't mind ripping. That's all you really need. If you've got big feet, buy your own gumboots. Otherwise, the city offices all have gumboots, they have gloves, they've got masks, they've got helmets, they've got all the protective gear you need. They've also got all the tools you're gonna need. So you don't need to worry about any of that. You just need to go there and show up willing to work. They will take care of the rest. I would say though, you want to take a pair of sunglasses that actually do protect your eyes from the sun, not something that's cheap and cheerful that doesn't actually protect you from UV rays, something decent. That said though, you don't want to take your best sunglasses because again, volunteer situation, you're likely to damage them or scratch them or whatnot. So I generally use my second set of sunglasses when I go there, not my best ones. Sunglasses are probably one of the essentials you are gonna need. If you go in summer, you know, the usual sort of summer trip, sunblock, whatever you need to stay cool. You know, you live through a summer in Japan, you know what I mean. And if you haven't lived through a summer in Japan, don't fucking volunteer in summer. Just don't. And for that matter, don't volunteer in winter either. Yes, so now about those of you who don't live here or don't have the Japanese communication ability to volunteer through city offices on your own. What you're going to need to do, and get on Google for this, is find yourself volunteer organizations that do work and have English staff and provide for English volunteers. They exist, they're still out there, and they're still doing work. Off the top of my head, the Save Minami Soma project in Fukushima, they are they're the one I'm hearing a lot about these days. They're doing a lot of good work. I actually know one of the people in the admin side of that project, and you know, she's a good friend of mine, so I know that the project is solid. They're not misappropriating funds, they're not doing any shady shit. It's definitely a project you can support and help out with and work with, and easily find out information how to work with the Minami Soma project. And being in Fukushima, it's one of the areas that really hasn't been worked on a lot. There's the stigma of radiation and whatnot, and so not many people are really helped out there, whereas many people have gone up to Iwate and even more to Miyagi prefectures. So, you know, you'll be doing a lot of good work if you help them out. Okay, so I forgot to mention this on the drive, it completely slipped my mind. But the Playground of Hope project by It's Not Just Mud, that is an excellent project for you if you have no Japanese ability, if you want to work in Touhoku, if you want to volunteer. Check it out. Google It's Not Just Mud. There's the URL right there. Come on, focus. There you go. So definitely check them out. Definitely check them out. But yeah, any Google search will reveal a number of organizations that are still operating that you can still volunteer with in Touhoku. One organization I say you should avoid. Now, this isn't from personal experience, but friends of mine who volunteered with them, they absolutely hated their experience, and they said that just the way it was set up, the way the admin worked, the way the people who ran it sort of behaved, it was shady, it wasn't quite on the level, they didn't have a good experience, they don't want to go back there. And that is Peace Boat. Again, I haven't worked with them. I have only ever worked with All Hands myself personally, and they're amazing. But so yeah, you might want to be careful of Peace Boat. I don't know if they're still operating, but if they are, I actually haven't heard any good things about them from people who've gone up with them. It's really not that difficult to figure out. It's just really getting out there the first time. You do need some confidence. You do need some Japanese communication. But other than that, it's really good, and there's still so much to be done. So I really hope this inspires you to go out there, to go out and help people, to go out and volunteer, because it's just, I really enjoy helping people. It's weird, you feel really good when you do good for others. I know the logic's weird, isn't it? It's not something that, it's not a prevailing mindset in today's world, I must say. But you'll definitely feel better for it. And if nothing else, just going up to the tsunami affected areas, it changes your mind. It changes the way you think about many things, and it changes the way you live your life. It changes you for the better. So really, if you can, go up there. If I glossed over something, if I wasn't clear, if you have more questions about anything that I mentioned, anything I didn't mention, any specifics that you want to find out, drop me a line in the comments below. Drop me a line on the World How It Is Facebook page. Drop me a line on my Twitter at DarcNoodles, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. Like I said, I'll probably be going up in September again. Keep in contact with me. I will put a posting up on social media when I am going up again, so you'll be more than welcome to join me. And yeah, just let me know if there's anything else about volunteering you want to know about. I'm really passionate about it. I'll answer any of your questions. I will I'll even check organizations out for you. If you're planning on volunteering somewhere else, you just need someone to look over a few things. If you need a few pointers about specific areas, things to do in Iwate Prefecture when you're not volunteering, just stuff to do. Anything to do with volunteering, or in any way that I might be able to help you with the areas up there, please don't hesitate to ask. Anytime. I will definitely respond to those comments and any posts that you leave me in that regard. Cool.